Hey, it's Juck. It's a primetime recruiting weekend at the Shoe on Saturday when the Buckeyes take on the Huskers. We also got some 2025 commits going elsewhere. We'll talk about all that and what I think is going to be a battle between Oregon and Ohio State that we've not yet seen. Let's get it. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country. Hey, welcome into Juckonbucks. Thanks so much for joining me today. I am coming to you for the final time from Juck Studios Southeast, and I cannot wait to get home to the cozy confines in the bright colors and the beautiful helmets all around me. I long for my studio. I love my studio. I love my live shows. I haven't been able to do that here either. Unfortunately, I'm going to be flying home during the Ohio State-Nebraska game, as if it wasn't bad enough that I was traveling on 2 college football Saturdays. One of them going to be during my beloved Buckeyes game. It's as if Mrs. Juck just met me when we've been together for 25 years. Look, I'm not going to get into it anymore. I've been in enough trouble over it. Anyway, the point is, this game against Nebraska for the Buckeyes was thought to potentially be 6-1 Nebraska, maybe even 7-0 Nebraska coming in, maybe even a night game. And the Huskers did not do their job to make this game excellent. But we got a lot of visitors coming nonetheless. It was a perfect spot to host some primetime guys, and that's what's happening. Unfortunately, we know that Naeem Offord isn't going to come. Offord visit got canceled, and a lot of people are kind of concerned about that, and understandably so. If you follow what recruits are doing and not what they're saying, which is kind of the old adage, he was just in Oregon. He was going to come up for the Ohio State-Iowa game and push that off to Ohio State-Nebraska, and now not coming to Nebraska. Been on Auburn's campus several times. His pops went on with Philip Dukes and talked about Colorado, and Prime potentially wanting to use him in the Travis Hunter role. And then you've got the article that came out with the interview with On3, 3-horse race with Auburn, Oregon, and Ohio State, after being 100% locked in with Ohio State and not considering anybody else. So we've seen momentum go in the wrong direction from the Ohio State program. Ultimately, it could just mean nothing in the end and everything's cool, or we could come out of the end and say, of course, we saw the writing was on the wall for 6 months, right? It's all in the way you look at it. I'm going to choose to be positive here. I did tweet about it the other day, and I blamed Kurt Signetti. Naeem's dad reached out to me and said that Naeem would rather just come to Michigan and that the family's trying to manage all the travel with Naeem's visits, and his older brother, who's plays for Tulane, as well as Naeem's cousin, is coming into town to play in the Magic City Classic this weekend in Birmingham, which is Alabama State and Alabama A&M. So they wanted to go watch his cousin play. Certainly valid reasons, right? But, it is what it is. They say they're going to come to Michigan. I don't imagine anybody wants to miss that game. We do know that Naeem loves to go to big games. That's for sure. Who wouldn't? He's definitely a football fan. He loves ball. And he's also become, in my mind, even a higher priority than he was back when he committed. Because his senior film has just been, he's just even better. Dynamic, ridiculous athlete. Just a stone cold killer, man. Just a kid that's there. He's everywhere. I love him. He's become one of my favorite prospects in this class for sure. And I sure hope it works out for the Bucks. But we do have some other things to talk about. Some really important visitors coming. And let's start with the biggest, in my opinion, both literally and figuratively. Jakeem Stewart, the 5-star defensive lineman from Louisiana, who at one point was considered the number 1 player in the class of 2026 that we all knew was going to reclassify to 2025. Well, he has, and here he comes. And this is a guy who in the summer came up and visited and worked out with Larry, with Alan Clark, and it was a really cool scene as you had Ty Leak and Ty Hamilton came out to kind of help and just watch him work out with Larry. We're talking about a guy who has top 10 draft pick kind of ceiling. Should he, reach everything he should be? He's, 6'6", 270 to 290. depending on a couple of cheeseburgers or pizzas. He's got ridiculous bend. He could play on the edge. He can play inside. He can do them both in the same game. And he's nasty. He's got it up here too. He wants to be great. You can see it. You can see it in the clips of him working out at the camps. He's hyper competitive with the other star players when they're all in that setting. He wants to be clearly the best, and he lets them know. He's an excellent prospect. He's about as close to a can't miss as you could get, right? That's basically what it is. He's a guy you really, really want, and he's from Louisiana. Now, we know how that goes. Louisiana, a similar situation to Ohio State. Very difficult to pull prospects out of there. And similar to Ohio, it's the one big university, which means everybody in the state is obsessed with LSU, just like Ohio State. But like I've talked about since I started the show, this crop of guys, and we've seen more big-time prospects leave the state of Ohio, these kids have grown up in a different world than some of us did, and it is smaller. You are much more exposed to all these other programs. You don't just know the local state university and your rival, or, you know, when I was younger, it was more like guys my age, Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, and then Penn State kind of came onto the scene. And if you were a big-time recruit, maybe those four were the ones that were in on it. Now it's everybody. It's all across the country, and that is something that's just expected with these big-time recruits now. So we're seeing more of them leave, and it's not a big deal because it goes both ways. Now, I'd prefer if more of them stayed, but it is what it is. Anyway, Louisiana also has seen the same thing Ohio's seen, and more of their kids leave. So it's not any longer impossible to get a kid out of LSU. However, you know damn well that they're going to pull out all the stops to keep him in Louisiana. Now, ultimately, I think LSU is going to be the favorite in my mind, regardless, until signing day. Even though at various times in this recruitment, we've seen people think SC is in the lead. Ohio State is in the lead. Oregon now some people think is in the lead after he just went up to see Ohio State and Oregon. But until signing day, to me, I'm going to consider LSU the favorite because they are going to come in at the end as strong as they can possibly come. This would be a serious egg on the face moment for Brian Kelly and his regime, which is now, you know, potentially after this weekend in prime position to make it to the SEC championship game. And they don't want to lose this guy. So who do we got in on this dude? And why am I somewhat hopeful that we could get this kid out of Louisiana? His Final Four, I don't know that he's officially listed as Final Four, but the four who are really in on this recruitment are LSU, Ohio State, USC, and Oregon. Now, when is the last time that you can remember a five-star defensive lineman from the Deep South have a top four with one SEC school and three schools that are quite far from the SEC? I'll save you the time of looking back. It doesn't happen. It doesn't ever happen. What's that tell us? I think it says there's a real chance that this kid wants to spread his very, very long wings. And it gives me hope that he will leave the state of Louisiana. So let's take them off the table. That puts us in a wonderful spot. And what's interesting here is we've not really seen Ohio State and Oregon go head-to-head like this. I'll explain in a moment. Pardon the interruption. I got to do this in clips because there's a lot of times I'll finish a 30-minute video on this thing, and when I click stop, it'll just not be recorded. Gray box. Like, do it again, pal. We don't care. So I'm doing it like 8 minutes so I don't lose too much and have to do it all over again. But that one recorded, so fantastic, right? First take, boom, 1 for 1. Now, what I mean by that, Ohio State and Oregon have not gone head-to-head like this. We've seen them go head-to-head on a lot of battles this cycle. Zaire Addison, Jordan Davison, the high-profile guys like DeCorian Moore, Trey McNutt somewhat, Dorian Brew, Trajan Odom. There's plenty. Fahim Delane. Like the Buckeyes have won plenty. Oregon's won plenty. But we've not seen one like this. Now, The Trey McNutt recruitment, we all know, was very, very different. The Dorian Brew recruitment, you had Ohio State with the number 1 and number 2 corner already signed. They obviously couldn't offer Dorian Brew big-time corner money, but Oregon, to them, he was their number 1 on the board. So for them, it made sense to go all the way in on that. When you look at even them trying to flip Naeem Offord, Ohio State still, as great as Offord is, he's the number 2 corner on their board. So let's say Oregon doubles what Ohio State has, agreed to get to Sanchez. Well, that doesn't work for Ohio State to then go match that. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of priorities, and it's a matter of Ohio State having to budget who they go max deal on. Well, they chose not to do that with DeCorian Moore at wide receiver. They took wide receiver kind of off this year in the sense of they went for all the big dogs, right? And they tried to sell them with the pitch that you're going to be able to make all that money. We just aren't going to give it to you up front. But we want you, and all the opportunities and more are here for you in Columbus. You didn't get any to bite this time, and that's okay. But you did leave yourself areas to go max deal. One of those guys obviously was David Sanders, and that didn't work out. I 100% feel that Ohio State is going to go into this with Jakeem Stewart with the impression or the intent that we are not going to lose this based on money, which means now we have a full-on money's off the table, mano-a-mano recruiting battle, and those have been few and far between this year because, and again, this is not me making excuses. Oregon has beat Ohio State flat out in plenty of recruitments this year, money or not. But we've not seen with the big dog recruit, like DeCorian Moore would have been a prime example. Trey McNutt would have been a prime example. But Ohio State wasn't all the way in on both of those. So it wasn't really apples to apples. This one is. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see. And how does USC do? He's really high on USC for one reason or another. I don't know why. Maybe he just likes LA. But they're going to be involved in this. And we're going to see how legit is their NIL that they have said has improved. And then they were whining about when it came down to getting Pettijohn. When it came down to getting Pettijohn, there was a big moment of all of a sudden they got no money and they were crying and whining about it. Their podcasts were all whining about it. So where do they really stand now? I don't know, but we're going to find out. I think this Jakeem Stewart recruitment is going to tell us a whole lot about where USC and where Ohio State are kind of operating in the following cycle. With Oregon, we know where they're operating. They're going to be the top-notch recruiting machine when it comes to financial backing in the country for a while. I think that that's safe to assume. And that's not to take anything away from their staff, who are excellent recruiters. Let's remember, the money's always been there. It's the staff that's different. Some people think that all of a sudden Phil Knight has just said, well, I'm close to dying. I want to make sure I see them reach their goals before I go, so you have a blank checkbook. This is this situation would never have been any different. If NIL was legal 10 years ago, they would have had the same amount of money. If it was, he spent it all on facilities. He's always wanted to win at the same clip, like 100% all in. And he's going to be like that now. And it'll be like that after he passes because of what they set up out there. So this isn't going away. As long as this is the system, Oregon's going to be at the top if they have a top recruiting staff, which they do. That staff is top 5 in the country at recruiting on its own merit without any of the money. It just is what it is. So to belittle that and just say, like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not just saying they're throwing money and buying guys. It is nice to be able to do that in the transfer portal, which, they also have a lot to sell. And in the transfer portal, you've got guys who don't care as much about traveling away from home. So, like, they've already been away from home. They've already been to campus. So that distance, which has always been a hurdle for them, little easier to get over that hump as an obstacle when it comes to getting guys out of the transfer portal who are a little older, who've already experienced that. But I can't wait to see how this one peels out. Now, if you are a fly sitting on the wall and you're going to say, who do you want to be in this situation. Do you want to be Oregon? Do you want to be Ohio State? Do you want to be SC? Do you want to be LSU? Our guy Jakeem, right now, you would think the momentum is Oregon. That's what most people think. He was just at the game. Now, he's coming to the Nebraska game, and he's coming to the Nebraska game in a week that Ohio State wants to really make some noise with the defensive line. We know that. He's going to come to this game. I think that this defensive line is going to show out. Maybe a big game from Jack, maybe Tyleek. And they're going to show out. And he is also scheduled to come for the Michigan game. So let's say Ohio State levels the playing field and the momentum with this Nebraska game. And they also get a shot to close it out at the very end with the game. And most likely, hopefully, the following week is going to be a trip to the Big Ten Championship. That's some serious momentum. And outside of being the hometown school, which I really don't feel like this guy wants to go to, but the pressure can be just immense, I think Ohio State would be the position I would choose to be in if I could pick where do I want to be right now. How much does Larry only being under contract for one more year matter? That connection is real with him and Larry. I really believe that. A lot of times we say that or he really likes this coach or this guy likes that coach. Sometimes that stuff's really real, and I think it is with these two. I also think Alan Clark plays a big role in that and might play a big role in when Larry steps down. Does Alan Clark end up becoming the guy in that role? Which, I'll be quite honest with you, I really like Alan Clark. I think he's been excellent, but I want philosophical changes. If he's willing to do things differently than Larry was and isn't just someone who's, oh, this is what Larry taught me, this is what we're going to do, I'm all for it. But I want someone who is flexible, and Larry's not been flexible to work with. At any rate, some other flip targets coming in, and not other flip targets. One is Turbo Rogers. Turbo Rogers, an unbelievably fast back who is also more physical than people give him credit for. They want to call him a scat back and such. This kid will line up between the tackles and take hits, for sure. He'll deliver the blow. I think he's fantastic. For me, one of the top 5 backs in the country, and someone that I don't think the Buckeyes have much of a chance with at all. I'm surprised he's coming. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't end up showing up, but this is just a dude who's loved Alabama forever. I watched a clip from him when he was like 14 talking about wanting that Alabama offer, and when he finally got it, what that meant to him. He loves Alabama. And despite them going through a rough couple of weeks, they got the number one running back in the class of 2025 in Akeelan Deer. For him and Akeelan Deer, that's a great 1-2 combo. You come up into Ohio State, you've already got Isaiah West, you've got Bo Jackson. Even though there is some wide open room in the running back room, I just don't think it lines up, and I don't think it's going to happen. But a girl can dream, right? Then we got offensive lineman Damula Ajihudan, and that is the Georgia Tech commit. This kid currently committed to Georgia Tech, 6'6", top 200 kid, thick kid. I think he's got a shot to be a really, really good football player. He looks really good and really aggressive in Georgia high school football, and he's raw, which is great. I like that. That's fine. Justin Fry has shown us so far that he can make these guys better when they come in. He can develop them. I think that we're getting to the stage now where we can start to feel pretty confident in that, and that's a great thing. He's also shown us a track record of pretty piss-poor recruiting and piss-poor recruiting strategy, which puts him in a spot here where this is almost a must-get, man. You got to get this guy. You got 3 offensive linemen in the class, Javon McFadden, the most recent commit. You got Jake Cook, and you got Carter Lowe. It's a solid trio. It's a real solid trio, but trio doesn't make it work. You want 5, you need 4. And this is extremely important. And one thing we rarely see out of Ohio State is them flipping guys. We don't see it. And a lot of the reason is they don't usually need to. They're usually in position where they go in, here's our checklist, here's what we got to get done, and they handle their business. And they may lose someone late that flips out of the class and usually don't end up filling that spot because they're just not prepared for it, not good at it. They just aren't experienced flippers. It's not what this crew does. Urban used to do it. This crew hasn't done it, hasn't really had to do it. And it's a different tactical approach. And now you add in the money, makes it even more different. It's uncharted waters. They got to get this done. And this is their opportunity this weekend. Now, I don't want to say they're desperate because Ohio State's never desperate. And the transfer portal is the ultimate eraser. But you never want to go in to a season or a transfer portal cycle relying upon it for a position. And you certainly don't want that position to be offensive line. And the fact is, they already are. They already are. So failing to get this kid is just one more that you need to add to the list of a body to fill. We need guys coming up the pipeline with offensive tackle size. True offensive tackles, we need them in the system. We need more. So what else we got? Zahir Mathis, at one point a top 100 overall player out of Pennsylvania, edge rusher committed to the Buckeyes. This is a guy that a couple of months ago, I was a coin flip on whether or not I thought he was going to be in this class when it was all said and done, with him being closer to Penn State, him having 3 teammates playing for Penn State currently, former high school teammates being at Penn State now, and the connection that his high school just kind of has with Penn State, also visiting Penn State more than Ohio State. It just all felt like there was all this momentum to Penn State. And then we did hear from some pretty reputable sources that Penn State was kind of just finalizing a financial contract. And when that was up, that was a done data. Kind of feels like things might have changed. Maybe they're going in the positive direction, because when we heard about that financial contract, that was a while ago, man. How long does it take to orchestrate this? Not this long. Maybe that's fizzled out some. Maybe he's having a change of heart. Maybe he's just waiting till after his official visit. Or maybe the people who thought they knew something about that were totally wrong. That could very well be the case too. It's recruiting, man. Everybody wants to think they know more than they do, and everybody wants to trust whatever source they have. And ultimately, you could be misled. But I don't know what level of confidence we should feel with him. I'm still at a coin flip. But a really good visit right now, an official visit, which I thought was a bad move at the time, to postpone his official visit, because I thought at this point you probably would have already lost him. It looks brilliant now. I mean, it's a roll of the dice, right? Obviously, it worked out this time, but if he would have flipped, then you would have been kicking yourself that you didn't schedule his official earlier on. So now the roll of the dice has paid off as you get the shot to have this official and really wow him on his official. London Merritt, defensive end London Merritt, was recently in Colorado. Dion braided his sister's hair. The Merritt family certainly seemed to love the visit. I talked to London yesterday. He's debating whether or not he's going to come in for the Indiana game or the Michigan game, and he had a laugh over Indiana potentially being a closer game. There's some people that I'm worried about in this class. London Merritt is not one. This is a kid who has embraced Ohio State in his heart. You saw him against Avery Gotch at that camp. Avery Gotch, a Michigan commit. He just absolutely abused him and enjoyed it. It almost seemed out of character for him because he's such a nice kid. And the reason was because he's a Michigan commit. So this dude's all in. I got no doubt about that. There are a couple that some are worried about. TJ Alford is going to be on the sidelines of Miami, Florida State, 2 schools that have really gotten after him hard. He's going to be with Miami. Miami's going to roll. They're going to look great. The momentum is really high, and I'm still not worried about it. TJ Alford looks at James Laurinaitis in a way that you or I look at James Laurinaitis. That's James Laurinaitis. And he wants to play for James Laurinaitis. The way he talks about him, it's different than any of this other chatter out there. And I just believe he's locked in. Jarquez Carter, defensive tackle out of the other side, up northeast Florida, close to Gainesville, is a guy that I look at play, and he just reminds me of a smaller Warren Sapp. He's dynamic, though he doesn't look like he would be. He's nasty, and he just wants to get in and make plays. I think he's going to be a really, really impactful player in college. And he grew up a Seminoles fan, despite living right next to Gainesville, to be kind of counterculture from his family. Now he's going to be at this game. The Seminoles are going to get their butt kicked. He's also going to be on the Miami sidelines. Is it something to worry about? I'm more concerned about it than I am TJ Alford and London Merritt, and not as much as Zahir Mathis, though. I would say Zahir Mathis would be, I'd be most concerned about him when it comes to this group. Then Jarquez, the other two, not much at all. So ultimately, I do think Jarquez ends up in this class, and I don't think that he's going to end up at Miami. We know that he loves the mountains. You heard him talk about the mountains of Columbus when he was on the show. So I think we're good there. Some other guys we'd really like to make some movement with that are going to be in attendance. 2026 offensive tackle J.B. Shabazz out of North Carolina, who got offered before Adam Guthrie, though is nowhere near as big, good, or aggressive as Adam Guthrie. But we do want him. We definitely want him. He is one of these guys, and the way I kind of look at linemen is the first thing I want to see is this a lineman because he's a very large kid who kind of got pushed into football and realized, okay, I can go somewhere with this, or is he a kid who really enjoys football? That really jumps off the page with Will Conroy, Adam Guthrie, Darius Gray from Maryland, Javon McFadden. You can just see that these guys really enjoy hitting their guy. Right? They just enjoy the game. J.B. Shabazz, in the film I've seen, I don't see that. That doesn't mean it's not there. I just haven't seen it. Didn't jump out. Still looks like he's growing into his body. Got really long legs. We're talking a true tackle size. Definitely some potential here. And we need guys with that size. So a big deal to get him on campus. That's a really good one. Then you've got a couple of dudes that Keenan Bailey's hosting at tight end, including one of the best tight end prospects in the country out of the state of Ohio, Lexington High School, Braden Fogel. Braden Fogel is 24/7's number 6 rated tight end in the country. He's being heavily pursued by Georgia, by Michigan. He currently does not have an Ohio State offer. Can you imagine that? Almost a top 5 tight end in the country in your backyard, and you let Georgia and Michigan get on him before you. Sometimes I just want to shake some of these guys and say, wake up, man. This is antiquated thinking. It's not even 2022 anymore. Keenan Bailey almost got himself in a mess this cycle, going in on Nate Roberts and kind of having blinders on Nate Roberts, who was from 15 minutes outside of Norman, Oklahoma, and he got him. Incredible job, but he almost blew it, and Brody Lennon blew up, small school kid right around Cleveland, so he blows up, and you kind of got lucky with that because he wanted to be a Buckeye so bad, and you were able to grab him. And you've got 2 excellent prospects at tight end. I think they're both really, really good. I think they're going to change the room. And Braden Fogel would be a great piece to add to that. More of a Colston Loveland type, dynamic, athletic, basketball playing kid, 6'4", a little on the slimmer side. But this is a big one here. This is a big one. And will he get his offer this weekend? I want to say I think he will. But that's an important one. You also got Corbin Fordham and Lincoln Keys, 2 other tight ends that are coming in, not quite as valuable in my opinion, but certainly solid prospects. Ryan Mosley is a wide receiver who is not going to make it. I talked to him. He's not going to be in town. He's out of Carrollton, Georgia. He's Juju Smith. He's Juju's wide receiver catching everything. 6'2", 205. Not as highly rated as I think he should be. He's a 4-star at On3. 247 still has him at a 3-star. Don't quite understand why, but he's got the trifecta of killer offers in Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State. When you got those 3 and they're real for this dude, he's legit. Not so sure where he ranks on Heartline's list, but I would certainly love to get him in the class. I think he's totally dynamic. And right now, that wide receiver class looking pretty damn solid with the movement you got on a couple of guys. But plenty of time to get into that. The point is, Ryan Mosley not going to be making it up this weekend like was initially thought. So those are my thoughts on the recruiting visits this week that are going to be up in Columbus for the Nebraska game. And I am looking forward to seeing what shakes out with some of these guys, as well as checking in on some of the guys that are out of town as to how their visits went to other places around the country. So that's all we got today, guys. Next time I see you will be for the post-game show, which will be either Saturday evening at some point. Won't be directly after the game because I won't be ready. I won't even have been able to watch the second half yet. And or it might just be our normal Sunday sound off show. It might just be our normal our regular post game show on Sunday. So that'll be around 11 if that's on a Sunday. So look out for that before the NFL games. We'll get on, have a discussion about the Buckeyes games and whatever other games we see that really are entertaining to discuss. Which we've got a hell of a slate. If you haven't gone through the full slate, check out Friday's Juckonbucks. We go through them all. So. All right. Thanks so much, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Juck off.
Hey, it's Juck.
Juck. Who the f- is Juck?
Juckonbucks.
Juckonbucks. Juckonbucks.
Juck. Juckonbucks.
My guy Juck. Juckonbucks.
My buddy Juck.
Juck is the Juck.
Juckonbucks. Okay.
Juck is junk.
The Juckeyes.
Juckeye.
Juckonbucks.
Junk. Juck. Not junk. Juck.